everybody, it's me, Nikki, and I'm here today to talk about this video. I had a really hard time coming up with what the appropriate title was for this video. This video has more advanced heat embossing techniques, so if you are a beginner, this is probably not the video for you. We're gonna look at creating custom colors or picking colors and then matching other things. If you don't have every supply in the world, that is fine. We can come up with ways to really coordinate our cards and to get out some of those embossing powders and things that you haven't been using. I am really bad about using colored embossing paste and embossing powder because sometimes I don't see the cardstock that matches. I'm just not into creating and trying to coordinate everything if it's not already pre-done. So I'm gonna show you how to get out some of those embossing powders. Today we're gonna be using a bright green and a purple for this cute Halloween card. The other thing that we will use is called embossing paste. Let me show you that. So embossing paste is used to create texture on your cards. You can also pour your embossing powder on it and create color that way. But I'm gonna show you a couple of ideas that really help pull this card together. So I hope that you will enjoy this Halloween card. If you haven't done it yet, hit the like and subscribe button. That makes a big difference. I am at almost 3K and there will be a giveaway when we get there. So make sure if you do subscribe that you put it in the comments and let me know that you did, because I'm keeping up with everyone who's new, but YouTube doesn't necessarily tell me who subscribed. So if you don't comment and let me know, I can't enter you in the contest, and it will be a fun box of goodies going to somebody. So I wanna make sure that you are able to do that. So make sure you do that. Check me out on Instagram, Constant Inspiration. I am a very regular poster and I could definitely use more of you guys checking out Instagram. It would help me out. I love being here. I hope you love this video. Let's get started. Okay, here's our inspiration. We're gonna get started with the cardstock. So I got some purple cardstock. This is not the exact purple of what I'm going to use, so I am going to adjust the color of that cardstock. We are gonna be using a stencil from scrapbook.com. We're gonna use some Dina Wakley gloss spray in this bright green, this embossing paste, and then of course the embossing powders that I've already shown you. But we're gonna start with the base of the card. So I did switch to a darker color base. I only had two colors of purple, this one and the lighter one that I showed you in the last clip. And this darker one seemed like it matched a little bit better to the embossing powder. But what I'm gonna do is, to give myself a little leeway, I'm gonna add some black soot to the edges and create a spotlight effect on this card. Now I know I'm going to be using some black on the card, which also helps coordinate, but it kind of tones down the purple a little bit so that if it's not an exact match, I feel like to your eyes it looks that way. So I'm going to keep ink blending around the edges with this black soot, and you want to be careful with black soot. It is black, so you want to kind of start off the paper and slowly go on, because you don't want to just create a black piece of cardstock. You just want to add some difference. And the other thing about adding some ink blending to your cardstock is it gives it a little more variation. So if you're not exact on that color match, it's okay. So we're going to take this embossing paste. I'm sorry this is a little crooked here on how I filmed it, but I've got embossing paste, which is white fluffy stuff. And I'm going to put this directly on my mat. This is a silicone mat, so it's very easy to clean off. You could do this in a little bowl, whatever you want. Just making sure that I get enough to spread on the entire stencil. And then I'm going to pour this gloss spray. Could you spray it? Yeah, you could. I'm going to pour it to start, and then I'm going to slowly mix it together. I know it makes a mess, but I'm creating this color and I'm just using my palette knife. So I know that I've got a really bright green embossing powder, and I really want to make some bright green paste to go with it. And so I'm just gonna mix. I of course will wipe up if I got paint anywhere before I lay it down, but I'm gonna keep mixing and make sure this is as bright as I would like it. With this embossing paste, you do want to make sure you flattened it out, because there are little areas that will stay white, and you can see that when you spread them out on a stencil. So you really want to make sure you're mixing, pressing it down, and that you're not seeing any white areas in your color to get it good and consistent. Once I have this paste the color that I'm looking for, it's time to get the stencil ready. So you could spray your stencil down with some pixie spray if you want. I usually just use some of my extra washi tape to tape it down, and this seems to work well. This silicone mat kind of helps things stick down pretty well, so it seems like it works, and I even did it without doing the other side. Then I'm going to use my palette knife and I'm going to spread this all over the stencil. So look at how good this is going to look. That color looks amazing. It's very consistent. It's super bright, and it's going to look so good with our heat embossing. So if you're one of those people who loves watching people do a stencil, which I do, I'm going to speed this up so that you can see it. Okay, and here's that reveal. It is so fun, and I just think it looks so good. I'm so excited. Okay, now we're gonna do two-tone heat embossing. So of course we've got to let that dry while we do our heat embossing, because embossing paste is a wet product, and so it does need to dry. I'm making sure I've got my stamp, which is going to be Trick or Treat, all ready to go. Now we must add a ton of powder to black cardstock, especially, I do this to every cardstock, but especially black cardstock, to make sure that you don't have little areas that get colored. So it looks crazy, but I promise it comes off very easily after you're finished with your heat embossing. I tend to use VersaMark ink, which is just a watermark ink. There are lots of different embossing inks out there, and whatever works the best for you is perfectly fine. So I'm going to use my VersaMark and create the image, and then I'm going to show you how we do the two colors. When I'm going to be doing a lot of heat embossing, I tend to do 2 stamps, sometimes 3 stamps of VersaMark. You probably don't have to do that. I just like to make sure I've got every little area covered, because I want this to be a focal point for the card. So I tend to stamp it a couple of times just to make sure I've got a good impression before starting. All right, so I did it twice. Look how good that image looks. Now we need to get it out of here carefully, not knocking off the powder. I am going to go ahead and get both of my colors ready. We'll start with the purple, and I use a coffee filter to pour these into. So you're going to need a coffee filter for each color. And what I'm doing is just pouring approximately half of the image. So you can, I can do this with a big bottle like this because I've done it a few times, but if you want to be extra precise, using a little triangle cup, I don't know if you've seen those before, I'll try to pop one up in the picture, but using a triangle tray will make you be much more accurate. It's almost like giving a little small tip to your embossing powder so that you're super accurate. I want in the middle of mine for it to kind of fade into each other, so I'm not super precise about that. So now that we've done this one, while the ink is still wet, we need to do the green. And so with the green, I'm going to be pouring this on like I did earlier, just making sure I've covered every part of my image and I'm not getting it anywhere else. I do hold this at a tilt because that helps me not go back to my next letters and get a lot of the color there. So now we've got a two-tone heat emboss color. We just need to heat it up. So here's that triangle tray, and you see how I can just really get it in a precise location. If I want to add a little bit more to an area, that's perfectly fine. So I did use that tip there just to get a little bit more in the middle, and look how that looks. Before we start heat embossing, you want to take a paintbrush or something and make sure you're not missing little areas of embossing. And the reason is this is black and you've got some neon colors here. If you have little pieces of those colors still on your black paper, then of course you're going to have little polka dots everywhere with those colors on them. So just make sure that you got everything cleaned up. I'm usually pretty meticulous with this. Doesn't mean I don't mess it up, but I do work on that pretty hard. Once it's cleaned up, it's time to heat it up. So it's always good to go into this with as hot of a tool as you can. I go front and back to try to keep the paper from warping as bad. Now granted, this is going to be my sentiment, so I could easily just pop this up on some foam if I was worried. And I saw a dot start to come up, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that before I continue heating. And you can if you haven't gotten too much heat on it. So if it has started melting already, then you're not going to be able to do that. But I'm going to I was able to clean up that one little dot because it hadn't started melting like this. So then we've got it all melted, and we will put it aside. I usually put something heavy on top of it just to make sure it stays as flat as possible. But like I said, you could also use some foam tape or something like that and make this flat again. I hope you will give this a try. I just love how this card turned out. It was so easy. I just wiped off my black piece of paper with a microfiber so that I got all that powder off. I did add some little white details around the trick or treat with a white pen, and then I popped up the sentiment on foam tape. That is all that there is to this card, and it looks so cute. I hope that you loved it. Make sure if you're going to enter the giveaway that you comment below and let me know your name and everything so that I can enter you in that giveaway. I'm almost at 3K. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you're shopping today, make sure you go through the links in the description. And of course, hit the like and subscribe with notifications in case you end up being the giveaway winner. Have a great day, guys. Bye.